When Harrison Ford was announced as a guest on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, fans were eager for a nostalgic, lighthearted reunion between two famously witty personalities. The legendary actor, best known for his roles as Indiana Jones and Han Solo, had just wrapped promotion for what was being billed as his final action role. Audiences tuned in expecting a celebration, maybe a few funny anecdotes from Ford's storied career, some banter about aging in Hollywood, and a heartfelt send-off. What they got instead was a fiery exchange that blindsided everyone, including Colbert. The tension simmered from the moment Ford took his seat, and within 20 minutes, the conversation had devolved into an increasingly uncomfortable back and forth. That ended with Ford abruptly standing, removing his mic, and being quietly escorted off stage by producers leaving Colbert. In stunned silence in a studio full of confused spectators, it started simply enough. Stephen Colbert welcomed Ford with a warm smile and a light joke about whips and fedoras, to which Ford replied with a smirk and a muttered, "Don't start." The crowd laughed, but something in Ford's tone hinted at fatigue or disinterest. As the interview progressed, Colbert transitioned into questions about the cultural legacy of Ford's characters, asking whether Ford believed those roles were responsible for setting certain masculine ideals in Hollywood. "You think Indiana Jones messed people up?" Ford asked, arching a brow. Colbert laughed. "Not messed up, but maybe contributed to certain expectations." Ford responded sharply, "That's not my job, Stephen. Not a therapist team. An actor. I play roles. If someone confuses that with life advice, that's their problem." The room got noticeably quieter. Ford's words weren't angry, but they were pointed on. That was just the beginning. Colbert, clearly trying to steer the energy back into friendly waters, ask about Ford's thoughts on the current state of Hollywood. "It's a mess," Ford replied flatly. "Too much noise, too many people worrying about feelings instead of storytelling." That comment caused a ripple in the audience. Colbert smiled nervously. "You mean political correctness?" Ford didn't hesitate. "I mean the obsession with checking boxes. A story should move you, not impress a committee." Colbert, known for his progressive stance, gently challenged him. "But isn't inclusion in storytelling a good thing?" Ford shrugged. "Of course. But inclusion without substance is pandering. And pandering is lazy writing." At that moment, Colbert's expression tightened. "Some would argue that what you call pandering is actually progress." Ford replied, "Then they're confusing surface changes with deep impact." The tension had evolved from subtle to undeniable. The real turning point came when Colbert brought up Ford's recent comments in another interview where he'd criticized younger actors for being too careful. Ford sighed. "Yeah," I said. "That because it's true. Everyone's so afraid of saying the wrong thing, they've forgotten how to take risks." Colbert interjected, "Or maybe they're being respectful." Ford's reply was immediate. "Respect doesn't mean fear. When fear drives your choices, you're not creating Artur playing defense." The crowd murmured. Colbert's tone sharpened. "So you don't think modern actors have it harder?" Ford scoffed. "They have it easier than ever. Access to more platforms, more fans, more freedom, and still they complain." Colbert, now visibly irritated, shot back. "Maybe they complain because they're facing pressures you didn't have to." Ford leaned in. "Or maybe they're just softer." That was the moment everything shifted. Colbert paused, exhaled, then asked, "You know, Harrison, you come off like you're angry at the industry that made you a legend." Ford's jaw tightened. "I'm angry at what it's becoming." "This isn't what I signed up for," Colbert challenged. "Or maybe you're just uncomfortable with change." Ford responded, "I'm uncomfortable with hollow change. Change for show. Change that looks good on headlines but means nothing to the craft." The room was dead silent. Colbert, still composed but clearly bristling, said, "Maybe the craft is evolving, and you just don't like the direction." Ford shot back. "Maybe you've mistaken conformity for evolution." There was an audible gasp. Then, without another word, Ford began to unclip his mic. Colbert tried to intervene. "Hey, we can disagree. This is a conversation." Ford shook his head. "Not when the conversation is already judged before it begins." With that, Harrison Ford stood, thanked the crew, and walked off stage. There was no dramatic slam of doors, no shouting, but the quiet exit carried more weight than any explosion ever could. Colbert sat in stunned silence, then turned back to the camera, managing a stiff smile. Oh, that was Harrison Ford. Folks, the legend. The show quickly cut to commercial, and the studio audience buzzed with confusion and disbelief. Backstage, according to sources, producers scrambled to assess whether the segment could air in full or would need editing. But the damage was done. The most anticipated guest of the night had just walked out in front of a national audience. Not because of a scandal or a joke gone wrong, but because of an unfiltered clash of values between two men who both believed they were right. Asterisk by morning. The internet was on fire. The full clip aired unedited, and Twitter exploded with takes from every corner. Hashtags like hashtag Ford storms out, hashtag Colbert clash, and hashtag old school vs woke trended worldwide. Pundits and fans alike dissected the exchange. Conservatives hailed Ford as a truth teller, unafraid to say what many were thinking. Liberals called him out of touch and dismissive of progress. Think pieces, titled Harrison Ford just said what no one else would, sat alongside others. Like why Harrison Ford's? Nostalgia is dangerous. Even fellow celebrities weighed in, some defending his bluntness, others criticizing his tone. What was supposed to be a celebration of a cinematic icon's career had transformed into a cultural lightning rod. Asterisk, neither Ford nor Colbert made immediate statements about, but sources close to the show confirmed that the confrontation was entirely unplanned. One producer shared anonymously, "We didn't expect it to get that tense." Stephen tried to pull it back, but Ford wasn't in the mood to play along. Another insider claimed Ford had expressed frustration before the taping, feeling that the pre-interview questions were loaded and set up to corner him. Whether or not that was true, viewers now debated whether The Late Show had crossed a line, or whether Ford simply wasn't prepared to be challenged. The lack of clarity only fueled the public discourse further. Asterisk in the following days. Colbert briefly addressed the moment on his show. "Sometimes things get real. That's part of having real conversations," he said, without elaborating. Ford, on the other hand, stayed completely silent. His reps declined interview requests, and his official social media pages remained inactive. But his fan base didn't stay quiet. Forums, subreddits, and fan pages buzzed with support. "He's the last real man in Hollywood," one post read. "He said what no one else dares to." Meanwhile, others asked whether respect for one's legacy gives license to dismiss the changing world around them. The question lingered long after the episode faded from headlines. When does authenticity become arrogance? Asterisk, ultimately, the Harrison Ford-Stephen Colbert showdown became more than a viral television moment. It was a cultural Rorschach test. Some saw it as an aging icon refusing to bow to modern pressures. Others viewed it as a troubling resistance to empathy and evolution. Ford didn't scream. He didn't insult. He simply refused to play along with what he felt was a disingenuous script. Colbert didn't attack, but he didn't back down either. Their exchange revealed not just a generational divide, but a deeper, more complex tension within public dialogue itself. What we witnessed wasn't just a celebrity storming off a set. It was a microcosm of a society caught between honoring the past and adapting to a present that refuses to be simplified. For better or worse, that moment will live on as one of the most raw, unscripted, and unforgettable events in late-night television history.